What's up, nerds? We need to clear some things up. I'm sure you read the title. To get up to speed, here's what's going on. Someone found a certain patent regarding the Sig Sauer P320. Then someone brought that information to light. That's me. Unfortunately, people do not like to read documentation and would rather jump to conclusions rather than take a deeper look into things. We've seen this, for example, with the FBI report, where people who have not read it go on to repeat things they're told by other people without actually knowing the context. This is what this video is for. This is to bring all information forward that I have been able to find and to bring attention to details that have been overlooked or lightly touched on by others. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this patent. Detailed description of a preferred embodiment. The manual safety version of the popular P320 firearm, which is currently being sold to the civilian, law enforcement, and military markets, features a safety mechanism which mechanically blocks the trigger bar from moving and therefore the trigger from being pulled, while the safety lever is in the safe position. The sear on the P320 firearm will rotate between two positions about a pivot pin on which it is mounted. The first position, described here as the reset position, is a position where the rear portion of the sear is rotated upward to hold the firing pin back. The sear has two springs acting upon the rearward end of the sear, which bias the sear to be held in this position. The second position, described here as the release position, is the position where the rearward portion of the sear has been acted upon to be lowered, which will release the firing pin, allowing it to travel past the sear and impact the primer of a loaded round already positioned in the barrel of the firearm. The prior art safety mechanism will prevent the trigger bar from moving forward and acting upon the sear to release the firing pin, but it does not in any way prevent the sear itself from moving under the force from any other action. This allows for the potential for the sear to be jarred and moved from the reset position to the release position even when the firearm safety is in the safe position. This condition is clearly shown in Figure 14. This allowed rotational movement of the sear will then release the firing pin. When this occurs, the firing pin will be free to travel forward with only a firing pin safety featuring minimal contact area remaining in place to prevent the firing pin from striking the primer of a loaded round already positioned in the barrel of the firearm. In this way, the prior art is an incomplete and unsafe design. This is further evidenced by multiple lawsuits which have been filed alleging that the P320 model firearm will have accidental discharges even when securely stored in a holster, with no action being taken to manipulate the trigger, safety, or any other component of the firearm. As a means to improve the safety of the firearm platform, the present invention describes a backward-compatible drop-in kit which will replace the factory-installed safety lever and sear with improved components. Figure 6. Installation of the kit will require no modifications to any other internal or external components and will dramatically improve the safety of the platform. The improved safety lever assembly will come with a left and right side safety lever. The left side safety lever will feature a notch precisely placed on the rotational pivot pin and timed with the rotational position of the lever itself. The improved sear has an additional element when compared to the prior art sear, which, with the safety in the fire position, will travel into the notch on the safety lever pivot pin. The additional element on the sear will make contact with the outer diameter of the safety lever pivot bar when the safety is in the safe position. Upon making contact with the safety lever pivot bar, the rotational movement of the sear will be stopped. In this stopped position, the sear will remain in contact with the firing pin and prevent the firing pin from traveling forward and being able to strike the primer of a loaded round already in position in the barrel of the firearm. In summary, the improved sear has an additional element which interferes with the profile of the safety lever pivot pin when the safety lever is in the safe position, thereby preventing the sear from moving to the release position and allowing the firing pin to travel forward. A further embodiment of the kit is one which can be installed into a firearm which was originally manufactured in a non-manual safety configuration. This upgrade will require machining of the serialized chassis in the grip module. It will include a manual safety compatible trigger bar, right and left side manual safety levers, manual safety detent, and manual safety detent spring. After installation by a qualified gunsmith, the full conversion kit will provide the same improved safety features as previously described in the upgrade kit. An additional configuration of the safety lever and sear element to create interference and prevent release of the firing pin when the safety lever is in the safe position is also disclosed, where a protruding element is added to the safety lever. This protruding element, rather than a notch, as previously described, would be rotated into a position which would interfere with the rotational movement of the sear. This interference will prevent the sear from moving to the release position when the safety lever is in the safe position as previously described. This protruding element would be installed through an enlarged hole on one side of the serialized chassis and sear housing, or would be attached to the safety lever pivot pin after the safety lever is positioned in the serialized chassis. This configuration is not preferred due to the extensive modification to the host firearm required for the embodiment of this design. Now, excuse me for stumbling on some of the words here. It was quite a lengthy bit of text, but that is the meat and potatoes of this patent document. Now that we're on the same page, let's address some things here. There's going to be some reiteration and summary. This patent is more so addressing issues with the original P320 safety mechanism and how the sear can rotate into the release position, allowing the firing pin to freely travel forward, which may or may not be stopped by the firing pin safety. This is what leads the designer to state that it is an incomplete and unsafe design. The prior art is the current P320 design, and the engineer then refers to multiple lawsuits filed against Sig Sauer in regards to the P320 being unsafe. One thing that I have seen many people overlook is that the patent also describes how a P320 without a manual safety can be modified to take this upgrade kit. It states that the process for standard P320s will require machining of the serialized chassis and the grip module. This would convert all P320s into ones with manual safeties. There is an issue with this, however. It will not fix the problem with uncommanded discharges when the safety is disengaged. I still highly recommend taking a look at the patent document yourself, since I read the detailed description portion of the document. I skipped the portions before the detailed description, such as brief description of drawings. So please, take a look at the document that's linked in the description. Also, take a look at a certain figure on this patent document. We'll get into that in a bit. Now, on to the engineer himself, Brian McDonald. We're going to make this one quick. He was a former engineer of Sig Sauer, then he worked another firearm-related job at Q LLC, then he was a self-employed engineering consultant in regards to firearm design. You should now be seeing a screenshot of his LinkedIn page showing all this information. I will also provide a link to that. However, note that LinkedIn will throw what is called an auth wall, where it'll force you to try and sign in after a view or two, so get the information you want on your first look. This is where we get into our big player, according to the patent. Angled Spade Technologies, LLC. This is our big player here. This is the company that the patent was assigned to. Angled Spade Technologies is a consulting firm founded by Joe Salvador, Matt DeLude, and Joshua Waldron in 2022. These guys seem to have quite lengthy resumes with lots of experience in the firearm industry. They're now expanding into making consumer firearm products. Remember Figure 4? Let's take a look at that logo drawn in the improved safety lever in Figure 4. Now let's take a look at a certain logo. I'm sure you figured it out by now. Now that we have cleared all that up, there's something that needs to be addressed. There has been some piss poor behavior on display. I'm partially to blame for introducing this patent to everyone in the first place without this kind of deep dive. This caused some confusion, and even I originally thought that this was SIG admitting fault instead of what it actually seems to be now. There are people that seem to be hearing a specific part that they want to hear, and they start foaming out of the mouth and going nuts like rabid dogs. We need to read the documentation fully and cover these topics completely without taking things out of context for your own gain. We get nowhere with this. We have everyone clickbaiting this stuff, trying to be the first to report on things without slowing down and taking an actual look. A certain someone did this on YouTube this morning, writing the engineer off as a bad person and running with the idea that SIG did this as a sneaky way to get around things. Maybe this design could be sold off by the engineer to SIG for some kind of profit, but from what I see, it looks like this is a patent for AST for a product that may or may not become part of the catalog. You know who you are, do better, and slow the fuck down. Now that we're done with that, there will be links in the description for everything that I have shown here. I have no plans to make any more videos like this in the future. This is just a one-time thing. Thanks for sticking around to the end with me here. Have a great day, and take care.